It's been less than 3 weeks since Hurricane Fiona slammed into Puerto Rico, drowning much of the island and knocking out the power in an already fragile grid.
New York State lawmakers made the trip to Puerto Rico in Fiona's aftermath, including State Senator Tim Kennedy, who joins us now to talk more about that. Senator, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks.
So before we talk about what you personally saw down in Puerto Rico, tell us what drove you to go down there. Why was that so important?
Well, usually on a yearly basis, I'll go down and make my rounds throughout the island, visiting family and friends, community leaders, government leaders, continuing to build on the relationship that's been built over many years between Buffalo and the island of Puerto Rico, New York and the great people of Puerto Rico. This actually was pre-scheduled before the hurricane was even a thought. It turns out that Hurricane Fiona hit the island with tremendous force, and so my visit was very timely this time around. We went all throughout the western portion of the island, from Aguadilla to Maya West to San Germán to Hormigueros to Anasco and many other places in between. And everywhere we went, we saw people and their homes and businesses, communities totally ravaged and devastated by not only the wind power of Hurricane Fiona that came in about 9 or 10 days before Hurricane Ian hit Florida,
right,
but also the rain, which dumped 30 inches of rain on the island in 24 hours, and then several inches in the 48 hours afterwards. So they're still reeling, people out of power, and tremendous damage throughout the island.
And we're seeing some of the video that you and your folks shot while you were there. We talked a lot about this as Fiona was approaching Puerto Rico. This island is still devastated, still struggling to even get back to the way it was before Hurricane Maria, and that absolutely flattened that island. And here they get hit with another major storm. How do you think the people are reacting there to this, being basically hit with this double-barreled, and we're talking 5 years apart, and they're slow to recover?
Yeah, look, 5 years ago, Hurricane Maria was a Category 1, over 200-mile-an-hour winds and tremendous rain, and it devastated the island all the way across, but everyone could see the sort of evidence of that horrific storm. This time around, the evidence of the damage is more isolated. It's in the lower-lying areas. It's in the areas and communities that are closer to the waterbeds, closer to the rivers and streams, which, by the way, the rivers and streams throughout the island turned into raging waterways that wiped out entire communities that had 4 to 7 feet of water in their homes, and in areas of the country where people can move to other states with rather ease, where they are evacuated. On the island of Puerto Rico, they can only evacuate to higher ground. And so everyone was impacted, and quite frankly, we were speaking to families where they had their children, and I said, you know, where did you go? We were handing out water, say in Maya West, and a woman had her 1-year-old child. I said, where did you go during this storm? Which she said there was 4 feet of water in her home a week earlier where we were standing. She said we could only go upstairs. Wow. So they withstood the power of the hurricane in their own homes, which is horrifying. It's also very dangerous. We know that 3,500 people lost their lives during Maria. We know that there has been loss of life following Hurricane Fiona. It hasn't been to the extent that Maria ravaged the island, but they still need our help. And so we've done humanitarian aid. The community here, particularly the Hispanic leadership in Buffalo, Western New York, has led a statewide effort. You saw pictures there of myself meeting with the state troopers. Governor Hochul sent dozens of state troopers down to help and assist. 50,000 pounds of food, a lot of water to help the community, and people to help get the resources out across the island. FEMA is involved. You saw President Biden visit the island this past week. So, you know, we're doing our part to help our fellow Americans in their time of need down on the island of Puerto Rico, but we can always do more. Right. And so it's a call to action.
Earlier today, a federal judge taking a bit of a right turn out of Puerto Rico. Wanted to talk to you now that we have you about a federal judge's ruling striking down some portions of Governor Hochul's gun reform bill, which caused a lot of controversy. Those parameters that were basically struck down mainly were the ones having to do with social media and things like that. What is your reaction to this federal judge's ruling?
Well, look, unfortunately, that was struck down. And what we did here in New York State is we passed common sense gun legislation that will make New York State safer. We know that the United States Supreme Court is as extreme as it has ever been. And when they struck down a law that was put in place in 1913, New York State stepped up in June and worked to make sure that our gun laws create a safer environment for all New Yorkers and anyone that is visiting us. The federal district court judge struck down portions of those laws, including those that have to do with social media accountability. That law was passed in direct correlation to the horrific racist massacre that happened right here in Buffalo on May 14th. And so it just doesn't make sense that that was struck down. I imagine there's going to be an appeal from both the governor as well as Attorney General Tish James. So we're going to be working to see what comes next. But this is fresh news, and we'll see what happens in the courts.
Something we will be following. State Senator Tim Kennedy, that's all the time we have this afternoon. Thank you for coming in and joining us.